Now picking up on AMY ST108. Okay, let's shift our focus from building water systems to medical device reprocessing. If ASHRAE 514 is about protecting patients from exposure to waterborne hazards throughout the facility, AMY ST108 is about ensuring the water used to clean, disinfect, and sterilize reusable medical devices is appropriate for that purpose. Before ST108 existed, healthcare facilities relied primarily on AMY TIR 34, which was a technical information report first published in 2014. TIR 34 provided guidance, but it wasn't a formal consensus standard. As medical devices became more complex and healthcare facilities demanded greater consistency, AMY recognized the need for a more comprehensive and standardized approach. In 2023, ST108 was released. ST108 expands upon TIR 34 and establishes a formal framework for managing water quality throughout the entire med device reprocessing cycle. In simple terms, it answers a very important question. What quality of water should we be using at each stage of medical device reprocessing? Most people understand that dirty instruments are unsafe. What many people don't realize is that poor water quality can also compromise device cleanliness, contribute to staining, damage equipment, leave residues behind, and potentially impact patient safety. The quality of the water matters just as much as the cleaning chemistry and the sterilization process. One of the biggest themes you'll see throughout ST108 is documentation and validation. The standard expects facilities to define water quality requirements, monitor those requirements, document performance, and verify that the water treatment system is functioning as intended. The biggest misconception I hear is water is water. ST108 makes it very clear that not all water is equal. To understand why, we first need to talk about the different types of water used in sterile processing and the quality requirements associated with each. One thing that surprises many people is that ST108 looks very similar to 514. Just like ASHRAE 514, ST108 requires a multidisciplinary team approach. Sterile processing, facilities, infection prevention, biomedical engineering, water treatment specialists, leadership. It's important because no single department owns water quality. The standard requires facilities to describe their system, assess risk, establish specifications, monitor performance, create corrective actions, and document everything. Does that sound familiar? Because it's essentially the same philosophy we've already discussed under ASHRAE 514. This slide is probably one of the most important in the ST108 section. ST108 separates water into two categories: utility water and critical water. Utility water is simply the water used during washing, flushing, and cleaning. Examples may include initial rinse cleaning, washing, flushing. This is generally your potable incoming water. Critical water is used for final rinsing. This is the last of the water that touches the instrument before drying, packaging, sterilization, and patient use. To achieve critical water quality, facilities typically use reverse osmosis, deionization, distillation, ultrafiltration. The easiest way to remember this is utility water helps clean. Critical water protects the final outcome. Once an instrument reaches the final rinse stage, ST108 expects significantly higher water quality standards. For the first time, water testing requirements are clearly defined within ST108. Notice the standard doesn't simply say test your water. It tells us what to test, how often to test, which water quality to test. What always catches people's attention is the bacteria requirement. Less than 500 colony forming units for bacteria. That's essentially the same level expected from municipal drinking water. So when that water touches the wall of your facility, it now has to travel through thousands of feet of piping and achieve those same results when it gets to your sterile processing areas. Notice on critical water, less than 10 CFUs on bacteria. That's a dramatic reduction. Critical water must also maintain or meet endotoxin limits. Dead bacteria can leave behind those endotoxins, and sterilization does not remove endotoxins. So the key message here is that the challenge isn't achieving these numbers once, it's maintaining them every single month. Let's briefly discuss what these measurements actually mean. Hardness measures calcium and magnesium. Too much hardness, scale washers, problems, RO membrane damage. Conductivity measures dissolved ions, means more dissolved contaminants, lower water purity. pH affects corrosion. Chlorides, important for stainless steel instruments. Too many chlorides, there's corrosion, pitting. Bacteria, this measures general microbial quality, not specific pathogens. Instead, what is the total bacterial burden? Endotoxins, one of the most important measurements. Those are fragments of bacterial cell walls. Even when they're dead, they remain, and endotoxins are not removed through sterilization. All of these impact instrument performance, equipment life, and ultimately patient safety. Look at the number of required measurements. You've got daily, monthly, quarterly, annual testing requirements. And an important point is that the standard requires testing at the point of generation. That means RO systems or DI systems. It doesn't stop there. Testing must also occur at the point of use. Why? Because water quality can change after treatment. You want to ask your facility, who owns this? Is it facilities? Is it SPD? Is it biomed? Is it infection prevention? The answer may be that it's all of them. The numbers themselves aren't difficult. The challenge is creating a sustainable process to test, trend, document, and respond. So now that we understand what ST108 expects us to measure, the next question becomes, how do facilities actually achieve these water quality specs? That brings us to water treatment technologies. Let's talk through this. This is RO, reverse osmosis, a water treatment process that uses a semi-permeable membrane to remove dissolved solids, minerals, and many chemical contaminants from water. It's very effective at reducing hardness and conductivity and many inorganic impurities, what makes it a common backbone for critical water systems and SPD. From an ST108 perspective, RO provides strong control over physical and chemical parameters like total dissolved solids and mineral content. However, it's not a complete solution. Unfortunately, RO water is still saturated with dissolved gases. The system's performance can degrade over time. Those membranes require monitoring, maintenance. Roughly half the water is rejected during the process. So while RO is an important component of a compliant ST108 water strategy, it should only be viewed as part of the system, not as a standalone barrier. DI, or deionized water, uses ion exchange rather than a membrane. It removes charged ions like sodium, calcium, magnesium, and chlorides by swapping them with hydrogen ions. Produces very low conductivity water. From an ST108 standpoint, DI is very effective at controlling chemical parameters. Again, particularly conductivity and ionic contaminants, which help protect instruments from scaling and corrosion. However, DI has important limitations. It does not remove dissolved organic compounds, microorganisms, or endotoxins. Unlike RO, when DI resin becomes exhausted, it can fail catastrophically, meaning water quality can rapidly decline without obvious warning if monitoring is not in place. Personally, I don't think neither is better. RO is better at removing the dissolved solids and overall mineral load. It's a strong first step for improving the water system, while DI is better at reducing the conductivity and removing the charged ions, both important for meeting the chemical specs under ST108. I want you to think of RO and DI as the chemistry. Both are excellent technologies, and both play an important role in helping facilities meet ST108 requirements. But here's the problem. Neither RO nor DI was designed to be a validated microbial barrier. RO and DI address that chemistry, but ST108 wants us to think about the biology. Neither technology alone addresses bacteria, biofilm, and endotoxins. And that's important because endotoxins can remain even after the bacteria are no longer alive. That's important because endotoxins can remain. Start over there. RO and DI help create clean water, but they don't necessarily create microbiological controlled water. That's why ST108 places so much emphasis on bacterial monitoring and endotoxin testing. Let's spend a minute talking about endotoxins because this is a new area of focus for many facilities. Endotoxins are fragments of gram-negative bacterial cell walls. If the bacteria are dead, remember the endotoxin remains. One of the biggest misconceptions is the sterilizer will take care of it. Sterilization kills microorganisms. It does not reliably move endotoxins. There are different approaches to endotoxin filtration. Charged membranes, that's captured through electrostatic attraction. And then you have size exclusion. Physically prevent endotoxins from passing. The goal is not to simply kill bacteria. The goal is to remove what bacteria leaves behind. That's where endotoxin control becomes important. The standard doesn't just tell us what to test, it expects us to have corrective actions. If you have too much hardness, you want to look at your softening system. If it's conductivity and it's elevated, you want to investigate your RO performance or consider polishing technologies. If there's elevated bacteria, you may want to look at Class 2 FDA cleared filters. You may want to flush more often. You might need to disinfect. If it's elevated endotoxins, you want to determine the source and evaluate your endotoxin reduction strategies. The key is not simply documenting a failed result, it's documenting what was done about it. Surveyors do not look for perfection, they're instead looking for evidence that your facility recognizes these issues and responds appropriately. This slide shows where filtration can be incorporated throughout a sterile processing water system. Notice we're not talking about a single location. Water quality can change as it moves through a treatment system. Examples are storage tanks, distribution piping, low-use outlets, dead legs. The farther water travels, the more opportunities exist for water quality degradation. The best water treatment systems are multiple layers of protection, not because one technology is bad, because each technology solves a different problem. That brings us to our ST108 summary. Major takeaways. ST108 clearly defines water requirements for utility water, critical water, and steam. Each category has different quality expectations. Second, routine testing is now expected. It's not recommended, it's expected. New parameters. Facilities now need to pay attention to parameters such as endotoxins, conductivity, ionic contaminants, bacterial counts. If I had to summarize ST108 in one sentence, it would be define it, measure it, document it, correct it when necessary, and that's really the foundation of the standard. Today, we've covered two of the most important, significant healthcare water standards released in recent years. We discussed how ASHRAE 514 expands healthcare water management beyond Legionella and into microbial, physical, and chemical hazards. We reviewed critical water quality parameters, including hardness, conductivity, pH, chlorides, bacteria, endotoxins. We discussed how CMS, Joint Commission, and DNV expectations continue to evolve around water management. And we've reviewed filtration strategies, limitations, and validated microbial control measures. Most importantly, we've seen that water is no longer simply a facilities issue, it's a patient safety issue. Whenever I attend educational sessions, I always ask myself, what's the one thing I should do tomorrow? So here's 5 things I would encourage everyone to consider. Review your water management team. Is everyone who should be involved actually involved? Determine whether ASHRAE 514 has been incorporated into your risk assessment. Clarify who owns ST108 testing responsibilities. Review your high-risk areas. Transplant, ICU, dialysis, vulnerable patient areas. Blind spots. Don't forget the blind spots, ice machines, bottle fillers, eye wash stations. Finally, you don't need to solve everything next week, but you should know where your risks are. I very much appreciate everyone's time for listening to this presentation. I do have a QR code available if you'd like to scan for my contact information. I'm more than happy to help, and I would appreciate being a resource for you and your facility. If you have any questions, I may not know the answer, but I'll definitely try my best to get you that answer. Last, recently, the company that I work for, Nephros, has come out with the Water Safety Institute. It is completely free to sign up. This includes many blogs, webinars, just messages all about water safety, specifically in healthcare environments. Feel free to scan that QR code and sign up if you are interested. Thank you very much for your time.